As the quest for knowledge continues to progress forward, we find ourselves still asking questions about human behavior, social technology, and the future of mankind. In a world devoid of such discussion, 2 Crowder College instructors have been chosen to podcast their views on current events, weird science, and pop culture. And now, broadcasting from Crowder College, this is Psych Out with Nathan and Jason.
Welcome to the world of tomorrow!
Welcome to Psych Out episode 38. I'm your host, Nathan Gandy, psychology instructor here at Crowder College.
And I'm Jason Edgar, speech instructor here at Crowder College, and we are here on time, even though this was the daylight savings, Nathan. I know we didn't talk about it in the pre-show, but yeah, did you set your clocks back?
I learned about it after it had happened, as always. You know, most modern technology, they do it for you. You can do it
Yeah.
But I even asked my wife, I was like, hey, when is that daylight savings? She was like, that's a few hours ago. Like,
Yeah. all your old equipment needs updating.
Yes,
so.
yes. I only have one alarm clock, but everything else has changed because it's all digital.
And as you gotten older, Nathan, do you begin to appreciate or, I don't know, depreciate spring daylight savings a little more? Because now we don't have enough, like, let's say, hours in the day whenever we get home. I have my brother already complaining about that. Like, what do you think?
I typically fall into the camp of it's something we don't need to do anymore, and in fact, many individuals, there's enough data that says we really never ever needed to do it. For example, there's the myth that we adjust our clocks to help farmers, but farmers will tell you for decades, they just wake up when the sun comes up. There's only about the time of day that, oh, now it's 5 and not 6. Well, it didn't matter. You just got up when you got up. So actually, we still do it because the idea is it supposedly saves electricity, it saves the energy. But I think modern measures have shown that it doesn't. There's really no difference.
Well, it's probably just a trade-off. Like whenever they say we should move the times back for starting school, like at 9 a.m. as opposed to 8 a.m., this means kids are probably going to stay up an hour later. So
right. Fun trivia, see if you can answer it. What state does not observe daylight savings time?
That would be Indiana, right?
No.
It's not. I went in so confident. What state is it?
I thought you were right. Maybe you're right. I thought it was Arizona.
I think it might be Indiana. I'm not for sure.
Look it up while I stall. Look it up on the internet.
While we stall. Well, why don't you tell us about the costume issue with the Boston girl?
And then we'll see who's right. So this is our first live psych out. See who's right or wrong. So last Halloween special, we were talking about some of the controversies behind when can you wear certain costumes. We looked at the sort of sexiness versus female roles. We looked at possible inappropriate, whether that's culturally or insensitive costumes. And there's an article posted of a woman named Alicia Lim, who she's a Michigan young woman who dressed for a Halloween office thing as a Boston Marathon bombing victim, as in the full garb, but looked like she had been through an explosion. Most individuals would probably argue that this was in bad form, way too close to the events, not enough time has settled. And what made matters worse, though, is she posted this online, and that's been a running theme throughout Psych Out, is be careful what you put out there on Facebook and other things.
Yeah.
But, and I'm going to use this word internet as a nebulous entity, but basically enough people found this, of course, were offended by it. But as the, quote, internet is prompt to do, some of the worst individuals then try to push back at her by threatening her family with violence and rape and things like that. So it's one of those, answering some terrible mistake with another terrible mistake, which is not something certainly I condone. It was a terrible idea, and I say she's learned her lesson. I don't know how hard it's going to be to escape this. She did lose her job because of the costume.
And that's where I was going to chime in there. So it's one of those things like social media where it's like you don't have to partake in Halloween, you don't have to partake in social media, but if you do, you have the possibility of losing your job because of it. So there's that line where, well, do we have a freedom of speech anymore, or so on and so forth. So did you want anything else to?
Well, no, that was it. I mean, like I said, it's pretty scary. I mean, it was a bad idea. I certainly don't condone it. It's a terrible costume idea, in my opinion. But I certainly don't recommend death threats or bodily harm to people. In fact, she would, she had to delete all of her various Facebook accounts, basically go off the grid, and still had to appeal to websites, send emails basically asking them to deliver this message of, hey, please stop threatening my family. It was my mistake.
Yeah.
Leave them alone. So it's sort of answering bad behavior with worse behavior.
Does she really want to dress up like a bomber or a runner or anything like that? It's just like the same thing with the Trayvon Martin person. Right. It's just like, are you going for shock value here? And it's the same thing with the Westboro Baptist Church having free speech. Yes, we do have free speech, but we also have the freedom to think, right? So can you not, petition at a soldier's funeral? Can you not dress up like Trayvon Martin 2 months removed? So on and so forth. Maybe that's just me being old crotchety.
We would call that critical thinking. And our disciplines.
What is wrong with dressing like Big Bird, right? So anyways, going back to our in-show quiz.
Yeah, okay.
You were correct.
Yes!
I could have sworn it was Indiana. But it was Arizona. I guess it just ended with A, and that's where I was going.
It had letters of the alphabet in it, so you were close.
Well, hey, there's another thing. So, yeah, Arizona doesn't acknowledge it. I want to move on to my current events, and this has kind of been like an ongoing current event for the past week or so. That we've got the government shutdown passed. We're all back to work. And now the big issue in Congress is simply what's wrong with healthcare.gov, what's wrong with the website. And so, and the conventional wisdom here, Nathan, is that, Obama had 2.5 years to roll this out. He had at his disposal, some of the best technical people in the country.
Yep.
Kathleen Sebelius as the Department of Health and Human Services coordinator. And we have website problems. To the point, Nathan, where if you read that article, on the first day, November 1st, they enroll out of 330 million Americans, 6.
Yeah. That is some technological difficulties there. And I can't speak. This is one of those where it's real easy for people to either loudly defend or easily break down. And I'm not a technologically minded person in terms of programming. All I can say is I have a brother-in-law who's a computer programmer, and watching how much work his institution had to do just to get their own company ready for this massive thing. Well, to use that same word, it was a massive amount of time they invested. So I'm not surprised that there are issues, because I understand computer programming. But I counter that by saying, as you said, years to prep and plan. And I think, unfortunately, enough evidence has come out that there was signs that things wouldn't work. And from what I've gathered, I don't even know if the president was totally in the loop of this, but a lot of memos in their own sort of techno department of, hey, the software's not working or things are interfacing. So yeah, it's a huge mess. Certainly.
And they were saying, like, in order to fix it, they'd have to completely overhaul the system. But the problem is, it's already moving. So it's like, almost like doing a massive engine overhaul on a car while it's still driving.
Absolutely.
So,
and we hear this at Crowder too. This is not a healthcare thing, but anytime Crowder gets some new piece of software, and it doesn't play nice with an old piece of software, and certainly I have colleagues who are like, why can't everything just work right? Well, I mean, that's the world of computer programming.
Yeah.
That's why it's a high-paying, high-stress job, is because, trying to make those things merge. So I can't imagine what those guys had to go through. It doesn't excuse the fact that it doesn't work, and in part, especially those who did support the Affordable Care Act. Well, the idea was, let's make it available to help people, and then you can't just physically be like saying, we built a new health clinic, but the doors are locked and we lost the keys, so sorry guys. Like, it's unfortunate. I hope it speeds along soon.
Well, Nathan, tell us about the Simpsons news. I know the Simpsons have been on air for about 30 years, but I guess there's going to be a new change, right?
Yeah, I just thought this was both a sad but sweet story. Those of you who watch The Simpsons, I've watched it from episode 1, 6 years ago. I've even lost count now. It went from a controversial show to now family entertainment in one generation span. But one of the beauties of animation is your actors can age, but they can all play the same parts. And one of the most famous characters was Mrs. Krabappel, the foil to Bart Simpson, his elementary school teacher. Starred many good episodes. The actress's name was Marcia Wallace, and I say was because unfortunately last week she passed away. And so just fans of, shows, not that one death is more or worse than the others in the world of entertainment, but certainly a show that's been around that long. It's almost become a cultural institution. It is a cultural institution, and is even a family institution. So it's kind of sad when you hear that things happen. And so last night, Sunday, when The Simpsons normally air, they did a couple of things. They reran one of the more famous episodes starring her. But something I thought was kind of nice is, I don't know if you've seen The Simpsons ever, I'm pretty sure you have. But they always start an episode with what they call the chalkboard gag, where he's writing lines, some joke where he's writing a bunch of stuff on it, because obviously he got in trouble when the teacher. Well, at the beginning of this episode, I'll put a picture of it up here. Basically, it was Bart who had just written one line on the chalkboard. He wasn't writing lots of it, and it says, "We'll really miss you, Mrs. K," as in Mrs. Krabappel. And then they put a nice title card at the end of the episode saying basically, it's animation, so it's not like you can film something right away, but they kind of rush to put these in to at least acknowledge. And they did say they're going to retire the character because it is not going to recast that. It's something that's just part of the series mythology. So, nice little tribute for those of you who are fans of the genre, fans of the show itself. And I thought it was a pretty interesting little current event.
Yeah, and going back to The Simpsons being on the air for 26 years, I remember because I was a kid whenever it was popular. And I remember going to Six Flags one year and I was wearing a Bart Simpson shirt that said "Eat My Shorts."
Yeah.
And I had a number of adults come up to me and say, "That is just a terrible shirt. That's a terrible show.
Yes.
You shouldn't be." And nowadays we have things like South Park and Aqua Teen Hunger Force and all sorts of Archer, even all these crazy shows. The Simpsons is actually a very nice show.
Harry Shearer, which is the voice actor who plays Principal Skinner, Ned Flanders, things like that. He tells a great story of for the first decade of the show. A lot of conservative Christian groups, especially, very conservative religious groups, who believe the show is horrible, it's corrupting kids, etc., etc. And he said, a few years ago, he did an interview as Ned Flanders on the cover of one of the most prominent conservative Christian magazines, featuring him and celebrating how religious the show is. And so the show hasn't changed in terms of its overall theme. But you're right, society has changed. I remember as a kid as well hearing adults talk about how terrible the show, can you believe this kid said this on TV? And so, definitely times and tastes have changed to where now Simpsons is the family show.
Absolutely. And even back then, whenever it was considered like the bane of everyone's existence, like they sat down and had dinner every night together, The Simpsons, and they go to church every Sunday.
Yes.
And these are two big family values that they've been preaching since episode 1.
Yep.
So there we go, some current events. Krabappel.
I like when you're ready to wrap up the segment, you literally shut down the conversation. That's it. I am done.
No more talking from
No more current events.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
No, I think that's I think that's it. So let's take a break, and when we come back, as always, we'll do a weird science feature. We got some fun stuff, so see you then. We're going to do some weird science for you. We're all over the board today with some fun stuff we've found. And I want to start first with some weird science coming out of Germany. Now, Jason, on your birth certificate, there's probably 2 boxes or lines. One that could say male, one can say female.
Yes.
What's yours say?
Male.
Okay. Do you know that picture? Did you actually look at your birth certificate?
Not sure. Yeah,
One assumes.
We checked, not sure. Yeah.
One assumes your parents got that correct.
My running joke is because on the birth certificate, don't they put like your toe, your
footprint?
Your footprint?
Yeah, I think so.
That doesn't match right now.
No.
Guaranteed.
No, they'll never know it's you.
Yes. So yes, male or female.
All right. Well, recently, and this is coming off of the law by the German Ethics Council. Now in Germany, birth certificates will now have 3 sex or gender options, male, female, and what they've just listed as X, a third gender.
All right.
For you to do. And the reason they're doing this is basically just for both medical competency and to sort of bring light to this issue that as many as 1 in 2,000 kids that are born each year actually have characteristics of both sexes. And I mean that at a genetic level. Like we're not exactly sure. For example, some of you might have heard of hermaphrodism, which is displaying both physical sets of sexual genitalia. In the past, parents, in conjunction with their doctors, have just sort of made a guess. Like, okay, we're going to raise this child as male or female, even going as far as having some sort of cosmetic surgery to remove, let's say, external genitalia or something like that. However, since this is at a chromosomal level, what if puberty happens or even a few years after the birth, and they start manifesting more typical physical characteristics of male or female. And so they've added this to basically give parents a choice to say, we don't have a full designation, and so these kids are intersex individuals, and maybe even encouraging parents to wait before making up their mind as parents. And I can say, we talked about this with gender identity disorder a couple of podcasts ago. It's been kind of the conventional idea now is for parents and doctors to sort of step back and wait to determine what the child identifies with. Sure. Again, they have, physiologically speaking, a connection to both sexes. So what do you think about that, Jason?
Well, the first thing that popped up into my brain was just like a sign of the times, and that's the whole purpose, even with like our marriage certificates, where the marriage certificate says who's the male, who's the female.
Right.
Well, if you are gay and you're getting into a gay marriage, there's a male and a male, or a female and a female.
Right.
And so what you're saying is that even genetically, we have. Does androgynous come into play here?
It can. We use that words in a lot of different ways. Androgyny in the modern context came about the 1970s as a way to describe male and female characteristics as a social movement. For example, like being maternal and nurturing and childcare. That's a female characteristic. Well, androgyny is the idea that, well, why can't a male be that too when they need to be? So it's kind of sharing both characteristics. Now, other individuals, we've kind of started using the word androgynous as physical descriptors, like I can't tell what sex that is. So yeah, the word is in pop culture. It's kind of mutating its definition, absolutely.
And I'm just quizzing you here, Nathan. What about mosaicism? Have you heard of that?
Mosaicism, I don't believe I have.
This is according to Wikipedia, which, by the way, we're not supposed to...
Very reliable source.
Denotes the presence of 2 or more populations of cells with different genotypes in one individual who is developed from a single fertilized egg. So I didn't know if that was the same thing as what we're talking about here, but I guess we'll get back to the same track. I remember asking my friend Natalie, who's a transsexual. One of the things that she remembers is like just having that weight lifted off of her chest, being even recognized as a female.
Yes.
And so I'm assuming that transgendered individuals that it says that they're male, but they actually feel female. I could just imagine that's just a big stain on their life that their own birth certificate is wrong about them. So I think that this is a big step forward for Germany and possibly the world.
Absolutely, certainly. And it's a reminder that these issues of sex and sexuality and sexual identity are more than just social constructs. So certainly society plays a huge role in this. But even at a biological cellular level, we're not guaranteed 2 very distinct different sexes. Kind of interesting there. Now you have something that's on a completely different field, but something that is of interest to both of us because we love animal weird science.
And I like the nonverbal aspect.
Not that we're not animals.
Yeah, we're not animals.
But not human weird science.
And if I was an animal, I sure wagged my tail because I was.
Oh man!
Now here's the big difference between me and Nathan. Nathan's a dog guy, and I'm a cat guy, right?
Yes. Now I started as a cat person though. It wasn't until I got married.
Oh, cool. And hey, here's the thing. As soon as these cats shuffle off this mortal coil, I think I'm probably going to go to a dog person too. Yeah. You can go back and forth. It really doesn't, don't put me in a box, right?
Right.
But anyway,
who's talking about that?
I've heard the wisdom that if the cat's tail is up in the air, not doing anything, just up in the air, that's a happy cat. And I think for the most part that's true because anytime Archer's tail's up in the air, he seems to be in a very good mood. And I would assume, Nathan, the same thing goes with a dog wagging its tail, right?
Sure. That's conventional. They're wagging, so they're excited or interested or happy. At least that's how we talk about them.
Well, there we go. Well, Italian researchers, so we're going to Europe again. Yours was in Germany, mine was in Italy, are saying that actually dogs prefer to wag their tail on one particular side, whether it's going to be left or right. And apparently, whenever they favor the right side, that means they're happy. And whenever they favor the left side, that means they're nervous and upset. Now, this confused me simply, Nathan, because, well, whenever a tail wags, doesn't it move left or right? But apparently there's such small, subtle, nonverbal elements to this that if you actually notice that the tail is actually going more to the left, that the dog is actually nervous, even though they're wagging their tail. So, according to popular belief, just because your dog's wagging his tail doesn't necessarily mean it's happy.
I can see that. That's unfortunate though, because. But no, it's a bigger issue though. And you mentioned with cats or really dogs, any pets that we have, that larger issue of what we call anthropomorphism, where we just kind of project our own characteristics. I joke with my students that the same excited expression my dog gives me when I get home and I say, "Oh, look, my dog loves me."
Yeah,
it's the same expression when he's chasing a squirrel or eating food. So. I don't specifically know what they're feeling, but we kind of use those context clues and make an assumption. So I guess this article is kind of challenging the idea that just because you see a basic behavior, you don't necessarily read into the behavior. There might be more subtle differences than we think of.
And really, it is those subtle differences that can actually tell us whether the cat needs to go to the vet or not.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, my cat Archer, he's a very hairy cat, and he gives himself baths all the time. And he coughs up a lot of hairballs, and it's so gross, but there's always vomit involved and stuff.
That's a cat.
But the reason I'm not taking Archer to the vet, even though that he vomits once a day, is because, well, I know that he's one of those cats that eats everything in sight, and as soon as he's done, he gives himself a bath, and he's probably sucking in a lot of hair.
Right.
If I were just to be like, oh no, he's throwing up, I'd be at the vet every single day. So now that we see this idea that, well, dogs wagging their tails more to the right can actually be nervous or upset, maybe the dog owner can, kind of give them a little more attention, maybe feed them a special meal, so on and so forth. So it's just about being more of a dog whisperer.
And I would say year after year, we're getting more research on dogs that continue to prove that, their behaviors are more complex and subtle than we give them credit for.
Yeah.
And other pets as well, not just dogs. So very cool.
Well, dogs have been domesticated way longer than cats.
Yes,
right?
yes, and that's where we get the sort of the cultural myth that it's easier to teach a dog than a cat tricks. Yes, that's apparently true, but that's because of how we've been breeding them specifically. It's not that we can't do that with cats as well, or that you can't teach cats tricks. I had a professor in college that taught all of his cats fetch, roll over, play dead.
Really?
Just to prove you can do it. It's conditioning, it's just, it takes more time because we haven't bred them to be that level. All right, well, a little bit of animal weird science. Now I'm going to return back to people, so I brought no animal science. Sorry, guys. But this was actually a last-minute weird science today as I was prepping for class. I was just reading some news articles to see if anything popped in my head, and I thought this was really interesting because in class today we're talking about stereotyping and how we just have these kind of cultural stereotypes that we assume this is how the world works. So, warning to listeners, I don't mean to talk about anyone's specific religious belief, good or bad, but I want to present sort of a spectrum of religious belief linked to this certain behavior. So, according to the Barna Research Group, which surveyed about 4,000 people living in different regions of the United States, they were specifically looking to study divorce rates.
Okay.
And here's what they found when controlling for other differences. They were focusing on basically religious belief. Does your religious ideology correlate with your marriage lasting longer?
And simply, most religions are, especially Christianity, frown upon divorce.
Right, exactly. So the conventional idea would be that the more conservative, and again, I'm not using the political terminology, I mean the heavier into the doctrine, the letter of the law, the more conservative Christian groups should have a smaller rate of divorce. because that is against their overall philosophy, or at least a part of their religious philosophy. But what they found was completely the opposite. Studying American divorce, the highest rates of divorce were among Baptist and non-denominational, quote, Bible-believing Christians, meaning the literal interpretation of the Bible. The more theologically liberal Christians, like Methodists, had less rates of divorce, and the group with the lowest rate of divorce was actually atheists. So this is counter to what even I would have thought, just based on social pressure and.
I wonder if even they believe that. I had an idea. I don't know why no one's thought of this, but making a new restaurant chain called Atheist Filet, where you're only open on Sundays. And then we get Chick-fil-A on Sunday.
That's like you're one little in, one day a week.
Here's I think about your story, Nathan. So what do you think attributes to that, Nathan?
I will give you what the researchers believe, because I thought they said it well. Their idea, because of course they got flack, especially from very conservative religious groups that said, no, that's against them. Their idea was actually perhaps by having different attitudes on, so this is going to sound like a different topic, but I'm going to put it together. Different attitudes on sex and sexuality, they may actually be imposing higher rates on divorce. And let me read you this quote. It says, to prevent that greatest of all evils, abortion, such communities teach even high school students to embrace surprise pregnancies as a gift from God. They encourage members to marry young so they won't be tempted to fornicate. But women who give birth or marry young tend to end up less educated and less financially secure, both of which are correlated with higher divorce rates.
Whoops!
So what we're saying here is perhaps in focusing on this one aspect of dogma, we inadvertently create a deficiency in this other area of life.
Absolutely.
And so kind of an unexpected side effect.
Do you know a lot about religious history and the reasons as to why Catholic priests aren't supposed to? They're supposed to lead like a life of celibacy?
Yeah, my theology is poor. Well, that's one of the doctrines of some of the faith, but yeah.
So neither one of us have a bunch of cursory knowledge on the religious stuff.
Some stuff I know, but
not what I've heard in the past was, back in the older times, maybe even during the Roman times. Catholic priests were like rock stars. They traveled all over the world, and they, and they did everything the rock stars do, right? And it got to such
until the Protestant Reformation, they were the power brokers.
Sure, and they got to such a point where they're like, we need to calm down these Catholic priests. So let's just say that you have to lead a life of celibacy. Well, what's kind of like the backlash on that? Now we have a Catholic preacher scandal. It seems like almost like once a month now where, there's Catholic preachers who are, touching little boys and things like that. And so I guess I'm just trying to correlate it to, the church trying to do one thing.
Right, you impose a rule to fix a problem, but create a different problem. I think that's an interesting correlate there. And that's actually a theme throughout, certainly religious history, but a lot of historical movements as well, where we try to fix or address a problem by focusing on this one issue. If we could just focus on this.
Yeah.
And we actually talked about it on the Psych Out to kind of correlate it with this story when we talked about sex ed. We said, there's some courses have a very strong focus on this one topic, like let's say abstinence or STDs or something like that. And though that information is useful and beneficial, by ignoring this stuff, you then create more problems as well, problems that you maybe didn't see. So certainly, I think it's interesting. And again, those of you who are of any religious ilk, that's something to think about. In fact, Jason asked a bigger question that I always like to ask of religion or civic or political or any belief system, which is why? Like, where did you pick that up? Like, why do you think we do this? Why do you think that? I can't help but feel that if you look at a lot of religious history and just social history, women have typically had less power, women were typically seen as less clean or intelligent, and certainly women's sexuality was not something to be discussed. So I can see how all of those might have affected a more rigid tradition of what marriage is and how to educate young women and men on that. So just something I thought I'd toss out to viewers. Certainly if you have any comments on that, by all means.
And I see you're using Evernote a lot, right?
I am using Evernote to hang on to these weird sciences, so I remember to bring my iPad with all my stories
and because I remember telling you about this about like almost a year ago, and now Callie Bard is showing like she's doing faculty development, how to use Evernote and stuff. I was like, I was talking about that a year ago. But it is so great, right? Especially if you need to file large numbers of articles. And stuff.
It's making our podcast certainly a lot easier.
Yeah.
To hang on to this information.
Weird Evernote.
Useful.
Jason, done talking.
Weird science is over. Click. All right. Well, let's end Weird Science there. As always, contact us if you have more stories you would like us to talk about or comments on the ones that we shared. When we come back, we will do our feature, which we're going to jump back to something we haven't done in a long time. Geek Out.
Geek Out.
See you then.
Episode 38 of Psych Out is brought to you by my favorite group on campus, the Crowder Debate Program.
In no way biased.
In no way biased. Well, I must say, Nathan, that the reason we're talking about Crowder Debate today and the reason that they are sponsoring episode 38 is because they have a busy November coming up.
You didn't have enough trophies? You need more?
We need more.
This?
Tulsa, you better hammer them down. We're coming to get them. But anyways, 2 weeks from now, we've got the Tulsa tournament. It's our last tournament, competitive tournament of the semester. And then in 3 weekends, we have the Crowder Rough Rider tournament where our listeners could possibly help us judge.
That's a not so subtle way of saying please volunteer.
Yes, I'll get to that at the bottom here. The team competes in district, state, and national tournaments and is a proud member of both the Missouri Association of Forensics Activities and Pi Kappa Delta. Their Pi Kappa Delta tournament this year is in Indianapolis. Nathan, do you want to go?
That's where I go to Gen Con.
Gen Con! We're going there for a speech con.
What day is that? When is that usually?
I think it's going to be the 3rd weekend of March. Long time from now.
I've already forgotten what we're talking about, so...
No experience is necessary in joining the debate program. The team competes in parliamentary debate and college public forum, as well as extemporaneous and impromptu speaking, oral interpretation, and oratory.
Lincoln Douglas!
Yes. Oh, and here's another thing.
Is that a thing?
Lincoln Douglas?
I just made that's a real
yes,
thing, right?
that's a time of debate where it's usually one-on-one, and it's based off of Abraham Lincoln and Stephen Douglas.
I know who it's based off on.
They got to call them that because back then they had really small speeches to get their point across, and now if you call it like, let's say, Cruz-Christie debate, it's going to be 26 hours,
so you're telling
one
me,
speech in 18 hours.
You're telling me when Lincoln and Douglas debated, they didn't call it a Lincoln Douglas debate? What format are you going to use?
Debate. Right. Yeah. Anyways, interested students can enroll in Speech 191, 92, or 93 topics, or email Jason at jason@crowder.edu. That's another thing. Enrollment coming up. Enroll for the debate team.
I like when you refer to yourself in the third person.
Yes, email Jason. Scholarships available to dedicated students. And as mentioned at the beginning, we have one more speech tournament left this semester, November 15th and 16th in Tulsa. And then the 22nd and 23rd, the debate team will host a speech tournament on campus, and Crowder students are encouraged to assist with judging either for extra credit in your classes or service seed.
Service seed.
All of Crowder students are voluntold to do 4 hours of service
That's right.
seed. Basically, to just be an awesome, member of society.
Yes,
and if you're looking for a way to get your volunteer hours, come and help the debate team on the 22nd, 23rd in library. And here, we transition to the feature.
Wow, you're smooth. Smooth transition.
Well, ever since you said he just shuts down on that, I like that.
That's pretty much what you do. You
Jason off.
Jason out. Oh, geez.
All right, the feature, Nathan.
Man, we've had a lot of great guests, and by no means don't want to say we're better than them because it's nice to not hear us talk all the time.
Yeah.
But we deserve a little me time.
Yeah, a little me time.
A little us time.
Yes.
And so we're going to return to a segment we always enjoy, and that is Geek Out, which is where Jason and I take a specific topic, whether it's something in pop culture, book, film, television, movies, music, something that may not be the most academic pursuit, but still we think you need to investigate, you need to be part of. Now this week we're going to use something that's pretty ubiquitous, something that you all know, but we're going to go into more detail. And we're going to talk about some of our favorite things that we are able to watch on Netflix that, quite frankly, wouldn't be possible without this technology, and certainly without this new institution. Of course, most of you listening know that Netflix is a streaming system where they put TV shows and films that you can watch whenever you want. And Jason, you and I are about the same age. Netflix is new. It's hard to imagine that it hasn't been around forever. I mean, the internet itself is relatively new. It's a lifetime. But, well, you know, I remember I worked at the mall during college, and when they first started distributing Netflix subscriptions, it was like the mail-based, you know, order a DVD instead of going to your video store.
Yeah.
This is well before stream, like, that was even conceived.
No late fees. And
right.
It's $12 a month. And what I remember, and this kind of goes back to, it's not like live streaming anymore, but back in my day, you had like a 5-list key, right?
Yeah.
And they would mail you whatever was on the top of your key, and like these really kind of gross, like they eventually became gross, little envelopes, no postage necessary, and you could hold on to it as long as you want. Well, that was then, and this is now, where it's essentially just nothing but live streaming. And what popped, and I was the one that kind of got this ball rolling, saying, hey, this is what I was going to talk about, and you said, hey, I'm going to talk about it too. But one of the, and they pick and choose what they want to live stream and what they want to just mail out. And something up until recently that was mailed out was all the Dexter seasons. Yeah. So you go to the live streaming and you type in Dexter, and it's not in the live streaming. Until recently.
Yes.
So the first 4 seasons of Dexter are now on the live streaming on Netflix. And so I think this is great because now people that are like, I didn't really want to watch Dexter, but now they can because it's there, and you probably noticed this too. It's so easy to just slide right through an entire season of a show.
Absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it with you too.
And real quick, it'll be like, you're going to go to the next episode in 8, 7, 6. And so it's like, you can just sit there and just watch like an entire series in one sitting. So I guess that's just it, like, kind of like some of the newer things on Netflix and just kind of like Netflix stuff.
And this is, I mean, to make this clear, Jason mentioned the mail model was just a few years ago and still exists.
Oh, yeah.
But to put this in perspective, just a couple of years ago, Netflix spent billions of dollars to pay for the rights of these shows. Like, the reason why if something's not on their service yet is they haven't bought the rights to it. They are spending billions, but that still saves them money on postage alone.
Sure.
Like, just how much they were spending on mail because it's free postage. So, you know, this is a costly endeavor for them, but it just shows you how in just a few years, you know, it's not the wave of the future, it's the wave of the present. And the way I consume media absolutely has changed, which I'm going to let you start because you mentioned that the first show you wanted to bring up totally shows how these streaming services are redefining how we even think of as television.
Did you know that YouTube last night hosted a YouTube video award?
Yes.
And now it's like, I'm about ready to move to a new house, and I'm even thinking to myself, do I need that big cable bill?
Right.
Or should I just spend all my money on super awesome internet because everything I want is either on Netflix or HBO Go or Hulu?
Absolutely.
You wanted me to talk about my number one? Okay.
I do, because I think that is the place to start in talking about the new world of TV.
Okay, so if Netflix is making a lot of money, they're essentially like a production company, right?
Yes.
Like CBS, NBC, CBS pumps out, 2.5 Men or Big Bang Theory. Well, why can't YouTube pump out a new show, or maybe Netflix or Hulu? And so we've talked about this in the past, the show Orange is the New Black. And this is just a Netflix production, and, one day Netflix doesn't have it, and the next day, boom, it has all of season 1. And so one day after the release of Orange is the New Black Season 1, you could possibly watch all the episodes, and you're like, oh my gosh, that ended so crazy, I gotta wait a whole other year until, they put the next season on Netflix. But that alone, Nathan, completely changes the way we watch television, because this past season on Breaking Bad or Dexter, 1 hour, and then it's a cliffhanger, and I gotta wait a whole other week. So instead of getting my shows 1 hour a week, I get them 12 hours a year, I guess, right? So, I don't know. And I was going to say that the reason Breaking Bad, its ratings got bigger and bigger as the seasons progressed is because Breaking Bad was kind of one of those shows that was free on Netflix. Just go and watch it anytime you want. Yeah. And so, and especially with only like 6 seasons, they could, you could just simply go to Netflix and catch up on Breaking Bad, and then you could watch the rest of it on TV. Or if you just wanted to watch everything on Netflix, you could. So it's changing almost the way that we watch even previous shows as well.
Absolutely. And that's going to be how I jump into my example. What Jason and I are, what I'm going to elicit Jason to do with me is, that sounds dirty, is actually toss out a few shows that we're going to argue wouldn't really be possible to most consumers except for this model. Mm-hmm. And so here, you said it perfectly, previous shows. Sure. So my example I'm going to start with is the comedy How I Met Your Mother. Okay. It is currently wrapping up its 9th season. Manny and I started watching it a few months ago. And season 1.
Dare I say this is a long story on How I Met Your Mother.
Absolutely.
9 seasons.
9 seasons. So imagine 9 seasons, 20 minutes each. Imagine the time. I mean, the time itself is the same, but imagine the cost of renting or buying these seasons to catch up on a show that has, it's international success. So by all critical accounts, and most fans will tell you it's a great show. I love it. But we were able to, we're going to watch the finale in real time thanks to Netflix, and we caught up on 8 years of a show. But we did it in a few months, a little bit here and there. Hey, let's watch this instead of something on cable, like you said. And so that was my first big example of, wow, I can't believe I've watched this much TV. And you mentioned it perfectly, like how it keeps, one after the other. It'll be a lazy Saturday for us. We're working on something or we're hanging out. Well, let's just throw it on. And bam, and bam, and bam. And so,
no commercials.
No commercials either. I painted my nursery to How I Met Your Mother. My wife painted one of our rooms to that. We worked on laundry and things. So you have this streaming service that's not based on the time of day. And, and you mentioned YouTube. The internet has created a new culture of, I want my information now. And you can argue that's making us impatient. That's a whole different issue. But TV is still on a time delay, right? You have to wait once a week, as you said, wait 8 o'clock. You better be there at 8, or you better record it. Netflix says, nope, see it whenever you want. So that's mine. I'm going to toss the ball back to you. Is there another thing that you think viewers without Netflix, just wouldn't be able to grab hold of this product?
I've got 2 from our friends in England. I saw one on yours and then one that I have on my list. I wouldn't have watched Sherlock on BBC. And I don't know how all of my debate team knows about Doctor Who, but they know about Doctor Who. It's a huge international thing. And, when I was in high school and college, Nathan, I didn't watch shows from Britain.
Yes.
And now we can watch The British Office. We can watch Sherlock and Doctor Who. And here's the thing about watching, let's say, an episode of Sherlock, and this is one that I would actually inform my audience to watch, because Sherlock is Benedict Cumberbatch, arguably one of the best actors on the planet right now. And he's playing Sherlock, the most done, character.
Yeah, he is the most portrayed character in television history.
And the seasons, there's only 3 episodes per season, and they're an hour and a half apiece.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, we went through those 2 seasons, or back to back. And Doctor Who, I think they're in a bunch of seasons, but I'm not going to necessarily touch Doctor Who, but I know if I wanted to, I can jump right in.
You mentioned BBC. I wasn't going to bring it up, but it's on my list. I've watched 11 seasons of Top Gear, the British car show, which I don't even know that much about cars. I've learned about it from watching them. Oh yeah, it's a uniquely English show.
So that's like a reality show, right?
Yeah. Sort of reality comedy, but it's basically a car enthusiast show. But
I'll tell you
BBC thing.
Yeah, I'll tell you another one that's a good reality TV show that I've only watched on Netflix is Kitchen Nightmares, and that's where it's Chef Gordon Ramsay, and he goes into the worst.
That's your one you want to submit there for what people should watch.
Oh my gosh! And it's just it's a good way to just be stressed out on something that's probably not your problem for the moment, but it's I love that show, but I wouldn't watch it on TV. I'd rather just be like, you know what, I'm going to turn on Netflix and watch Kitchen Nightmares.
Gotcha.
Have you ever seen that show?
I know about it.
Oh, it's rough. And I think I feel a little bit more closely associated to it because I worked in a restaurant. And man, seriously, an hour every night, there was just nonstop stress. And I worked at a good restaurant. I can only imagine some of these kitchen nightmares. So I guess I can, vicariously live through some of these kitchen nightmares, if you will. But what else you got, Nathan?
I'm going to add a show that you actually recommended to me, but without Netflix, I would not have been able to watch or catch up on. That's The League.
Okay.
And in fact, same for my wife. Even describing it to her, she was like, I don't know, maybe not her bag.
I told you to watch that?
But yeah.
And you did?
You
oh,
did,
wow.
yeah.
Cool.
So he doesn't remember the conversations we have.
I can't believe I told you to watch the show and you did.
But again, had it been on TV, you would have been like, okay, Friday at 8, you got to watch this
Yes.
show. But by the way, you haven't seen much of it, so let me explain it to you. Or I can throw it on Netflix at a weird time of day when my wife and I aren't doing anything, and it was easy to hook her because well, we're not watching anything. Throw it up, and then you get sucked in if you like the show. So that's real time episode. I mean, we burned through. They had short seasons, but we burned through 4 seasons.
Yeah. And another thing is you can pick which one. You want to watch season 3, episode 7. You go right to season 3, episode 7, and you watch it. Like I love the Carmangelo episode.
Yes.
Of The League. And so anytime I'm like, hey, have you ever seen this show? My friends are like, no. I'm like, watch this episode.
Yes.
You'll be hooked.
That's a good one.
Here's another one, Nathan. How about like the show Archer?
Yes.
Okay, so Archer, I love that show.
Yeah.
But maybe I don't want to spend $30 on season 1 or season 2. So if I just have Netflix, $12 a month, I know I'm going to have Archer whenever I want. So I was just going to say, and I know you're kind of the opposite here because you're a big fanatic of like DVDs and stuff, but I haven't bought a DVD in a really long time.
Now, and you say that though, I have a significantly large DVD collection compared to many people. I admit that.
It's a library.
Except if you look at when Netflix started streaming, my purchase habits have drastically changed.
And why wouldn't they?
Very few times.
And Arrow is on Netflix now, and I don't even think I get the channel that Arrow is on. Maybe I do, but I've never went out and seeked it out. But there's a show that Nathan told me to watch, and now I've only watched the first episode because I've been so busy, but maybe during Christmas break I'm going to watch Arrow. And what about during Christmas break whenever somebody, let's say Jason Edgar, has 3 weeks off?
Yes.
Well, Arrow isn't on TV at that time, so
I'll take a break.
What to do? What a pain.
Yeah, and it sounds like, I realize as we're like more than halfway through our feature today, it sounds like we're being paid by Netflix to do this. Realize it's not their service proper, though I do give them props for
It's the live stream.
The idea that this exists. Yes. I remember, maybe I was in high school, and I can't even tell you what this was. It was a commercial for a service, and it was called Quest. And this commercial was promising, imagine if you could watch any movie or any TV show at any time. So it was obviously some company was experimenting with this idea. Now, it never happened. Who knows what that is? I've never heard of it. Again, years later, now we have Netflix. But, yeah, I do want to say that it's not that Netflix proper, but this idea, and this is going to be my final thing, my final example of why I think Netflix or a service like it is important to maintain, and that is, there's going to be a point where I have a kid, in fact I will have a kid, but they're going to be old enough for them to watch a thing that I loved. And I can either hunt it down, buy it, or buy it now, hang on to it, or I can say, flipping through Netflix, oh my gosh, Knight Rider. When I was a kid, I was 8, I loved this show about a talking car. Do you want to watch this? Like, I don't have to buy it because maybe it doesn't hold up, but I can say, hey, here's the thing I loved as a kid. Wouldn't you like to see this 20 years later?
We're not being super fans of Netflix right now. We're being a super fan of television.
Right.
And what we're saying is that the way in which we watch television has changed. You could seriously, I mean, this is even me who watches on average 4 hours of television a day. I'm starting to think, maybe I don't need Suddenlink anymore, which, by the way, I'm not the biggest fan of their service. Last night even, the last 10 minutes of Walking Dead cut out. Well, I never had that problem on Netflix unless I have a bad internet connection. I wanted to talk with you, Nathan, about, actually, since you brought up your child, they have Netflix for kids. And I don't even have to be a parent to realize how amazing that could be, where I know you probably shouldn't have your television babysit your child.
Sure.
But, what if you want to put a couple episodes of The Wiggles on, Netflix for kids, and your kid can sit there and watch Netflix, and your kid could scroll through all the things.
Right. I certainly like the idea that, and as parents we have to take further steps than Netflix to decide what we think is appropriate. But the idea that monitor is already in there, like the service is. I mean, so if you let's say you buy a new video game console, parents, you can do this now. You can set up all these parental things to make sure certain things can't be done. But that's your prerogative. You have to do that. Whereas Netflix is already saying we kind of get kids are soaking this up. let's try to filter as best we can the age ranges so that if they do turn it on or you do hand it the iPad, okay, you're on a car ride and hey, do you want to watch something? You have a pretty good understanding of what they're going to watch. So I do appreciate the effort there, absolutely.
And we didn't even talk about documentaries, like unique documentaries that you can never see unless you...
So they're just not going to come to either the U.S. or to movie theaters or whatever. Absolutely.
I was going to tell you in the news recently, I've been kind of hammering HBO on this, not writing letters or anything, but why do you have to have a subscription to watch HBO Go? Well, now HBO Go they're going to start having internet bundles where if you get like a particular internet bundle, you'll be able to get access to HBO Go.
Okay.
So there's another progression where it's like I know there's not a lot of HBO shows that are on Netflix, but that's just a whole different thing. Like
they gotta pay for that. That's why it's really expensive.
And one last thing, Nathan, GameFly, which was basically Netflix for video games. Did that ever take off, or is it?
It was doing well, but now again we're kind of in this digital age where you can stream things or download things, and so getting a physical something in the mail is more and more disappearing. I have one final thought, and I thought about it in the middle, but I wanted to save it for the end.
Sure.
You're familiar, speaking of downloading things, you're familiar with the idea of piracy, right? Downloading movies or TV shows. Mm-hmm. Speaking of streaming, in the last few years, a number of institutions, because we're always told, pirating kills, sells, and things like that, blah, blah, blah. Several institutions, and I'm not by any means advocating piracy, but they have found that when are movies and TV most pirated? That's what they wanted to know. Like the new hot TV shows, when are they most pirated? And what they find is they're most pirated when they're not available for consumption.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, for example, Game of Thrones is the most pirated TV show. Mm-hmm. When you look at, you can follow the torrent data, when is it pirated the most? It's when it's done, but not on DVD and not available to stream.
So they just want to watch it. So, they don't want to...
Yeah, so the idea, and what they find is when the DVDs come out, or especially when Netflix gets it, the rate of piracy disappears. So it's kind of the reminder that if we can find a way to create access, you're paying for Netflix, you're paying for something, we will consume it. But we are in a world of instant access, and so, if my TV show is not on right now, and I missed it, I'm going to go get it somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And Netflix, I think, is a great answer to that problem where they say, okay, we'll pay you, let us just show this. And with things like Hulu, I would not be surprised if borrowing from that legacy, things like Netflix are basically, hey, we aired the new show today, tomorrow it will be live on our service. I can't see that not being the future. Where websites, or even like studios like NBC says, okay, Netflix, we'll make $1 billion deal, you pay us, and the day after our show airs, you get the show. Can you imagine that? Yeah, that's what I see. So, man, I'm running my mouth a lot about Netflix. Do you have any final thoughts there? That was mine.
No. I think it's great that they have movies on there as well. Like The Avengers is on there. Like one of the best movies as far as making money of all time. And anytime you want to go just watch The Avengers.
My cognitive dissonance, I always get surprised when I see that. Like, how could you have a big budget movie on Netflix? It's the same way. I don't know why I think that, but my brain says that way. I'm like, this is a big summer movie. Oh my God, how is it on Netflix?
And,
it's like any other movie.
Yeah, so I like Netflix. Yes.
Look at that controversial proclamation. I endorse it after we've done a big feature on it. So, all right. Well, that's our geek out on Netflix, or at least streaming media. If you have comments, post on Facebook, Twitter us at PsychOut66, or find us in other ways. We're going to take a break there. When we come back, super fast wrap up and tell you what's to come. See you then.
Because it's going to be the future soon, and now it won't always be this way. When the things that make me weak and strange get engineered away. It's gonna be the future soon. I've never seen it quite so clear. And when my heart is breaking, I can close my eyes and it's already here.
Jason and I would just like to stop and thank everyone out there watching and listening to Psych Out. We've talked to you before on how to make a... What are you doing? How to watch or listen to Psych Out. Those who I'm more focused on the problem right now than he is. If you're listening, then you've probably heard us on iTunes or on psychout.podbean.com. But also you can watch us on YouTube where we video these podcasts and let you see all the crazy things that Jason does, as in moments ago where he was beating a bird with a gavel.
He was angry.
He's probably angrier now. Alright, so please, if you do enjoy the program, pass on the word. Let people know that they can find us on iTunes, on YouTube, and all those wonderful places. And if you want to engage us in discussions, please hop on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, all under PsychOut66. Be part of the show and make some posts for us. Once again, thank you so much for listening or watching the Psych Out. We love to hear from you. And if you do regularly follow us, I once again please review us. Give us some ratings on YouTube and iTunes. That's how other people find us. Jason, let's close this podcast out by talking about a few current things.
Yes. Things that are close to us or
Close to home.
Close to Psych Out. Well, anyways, so episode 38, this episode, we didn't really have much of a guest. We just interviewed ourselves over Netflix.
I am your guest.
And our audience is just clamoring at the bit. I think I mixed two different phrases.
Take that, language.
Take that, language. Our audience is clamoring to hear the Russ Hopper interview. So
Yes.
I promise, barring a discussion from Mike Jernigan, we will have Russ Hopper in our studio next week to discuss energy efficiency, renewable energy, Merit Center in general.
And supervillainy.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure he'll talk a little bit about Toastmasters as well.
Cool.
And then the week after that, kind of moving into Psych Out episode 40.
Oh, so excited for this one.
Yeah, near Thanksgiving, we're going to have Keith Zombrowski.
Yeah.
Is that his name?
Mr. Z.
Zorobsky.
Zoromsky. You got it.
Keith Z.
Mr. Z.
He's going to come in here and he wants to talk to us a little bit about common misconceptions about Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Columbus Day. History in general, because believe it or not, some of the things that our teachers in history taught us in 7th grade and whatnot in history, not a lot of it's very true.
Yeah, teach us.
And Nathan, I got this idea from just looking at my Facebook page on Columbus Day, where so many people are very upset at Columbus Day. and I went to Keith's office and talked to him about it, and he was like, "Yeah, there's some common misconceptions, and why don't we have Keith what does he teach you?
History and geography.
In government, I believe, too.
Yeah, civics, too.
Just civics, things like that. Just a college instructor.
All-around swell guy.
Yeah. And so he'll be in our studio in a couple weeks, and then who knows after that. Anyways, Nathan, on a little more somber note, we probably should have talked about this in the current events, but
I forgot about it.
It is a Southwest Missouri event, but I want to say Saturday night, there was a shooting at North Park Mall, and unfortunately there was a fatality.
Yes.
A Missouri Southern assistant football coach. And
now, to be fair, this was not a random shooting, right? This was actually a crime of passion.
This was what they call premeditated, and Nathan said it himself, a crime of passion. Apparently, the assistant coach was I guess, gunned down at North Park Mall. And this was just, one isolated shooting. And, even when you type in shootings in Google News, like, there's shootings that happen, all the time.
Yeah.
Even in Chicago, on a daily and consistent basis. I mean, they do not have things under control in Chicago. Just look at the Google News. But I can't remember for the life of me a time where there was such a big shooting in Southwest Missouri. So
yeah, I haven't followed a lot of, quote, local news, and that's Joplin here we're talking about. But, yeah, it's been a while since I've heard anything, so certainly it's always a little scary when you hear shooting at mall or shooting at movie theater.
Well, yeah,
but in this case, it wasn't random, it was intentional. That makes it better. But
it harkens back to James Holmes, where he shot like 30 people in Aurora, Colorado at a movie theater.
Right. So certainly very sensitive
But,
about that.
but thankfully this was not in a movie theater with no exits. It was right outside the movie theater, and they caught the man. So thoughts and prayers to the Moore family, and also to Missouri Southern in general. Missouri Southern's my alma mater, so I hate to see or hear anything like this associated with Missouri Southern, but yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
All right. Well, you've got a little bit about what's to come on Psych Out, a little bit about what's happening around here. So thanks so much for listening. Please comment, please rate us, and we will see you next week.
They got to talk about our toys.
Oh, we do. I was trying to skip past it because I forgot to bring something today, Jason. Thanks so much.
Well, maybe you can say the board over there. Maybe that's your toy for today.
Don't pick.
Well, I brought some Lucky Strike cigarettes.
Okay.
From the 50s. These are from Grease, actually.
Oh,
nothing associated with Grease the musical. It's just one of those things that I'm kind of like Nathan. I'm running out of things to bring to psych out.
And I have to start looking at my house. Or listeners, you should be sending us stuff.
Well, but isn't Lucky Strike? Those are the things that Mad Men are toting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I don't know.
You with your sweater vest and your cigarette carton.
Nostalgic Lucky Strike cigarettes. Did you bring anything, Nathan?
Shut up.
Hey, can we talk about Thor this weekend? I'm going to go watch Thor.
Are you?
Yeah.
You want to go watch Thor together?
I already have a date planned. I'm sorry.
I got a date planned. I don't have it. Oh, fine.
Well, you can take your lovely wife. She wants to go see
Tell
Thor.
me what to do.
Yeah, and then
Maybe we can.
And then little Zoe can say, "Hey, I was at the Thor."
She
movie.
was at the Thor movies. No, I actually forgot it was this weekend. I was thinking I had a little bit more time, but I'm excited to see that. I also, do you watch Marvel Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
No. No, not watching.
It's okay if you don't. For those of you who do watch the TV show, it's of course takes place in all that movie universe, and it's about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Well, I've read recently that apparently they're planning and filming an episode that is directly after the movie to kind of keep that universe spinning.
Yeah.
So they'll address whatever the plot of the movie is. So I thought that's kind of cool to keep all their eggs together.
Yeah, if they can associate more things with the actual Avengers versus just telling us what the people in the suits in the background are doing, then I'll be all on board. But
Jason needs Robert Downey Jr.
I need a flying suit or a big green man.
Well, you're going to watch Arrow this Christmas, which is
not
it's a DC, not Marvel thing, but I like the show. So.
Arrow.
All right, let's stop there before Jason embarrasses me about other things I didn't bring to the table.
Yes.
All right, well, thanks for listening, guys. We will see you next week.
When the cavalry comes, we're looking for a reason to break down these walls and jump. When the cavalry comes, we're looking for a reason to show you the brave don't run. No, they don't run. Well, a proper cup of coffee.
Weird science. Whoa, wait a minute. That's reversed. That's weird.
Maybe I did something. Oh, you mean, oh yeah, it is like a mirror.
Yeah. Interesting.
Beep.
Well,
It's probably always been that way, and you
Does it
just
matter?
never noticed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're probably right.